Hey guys, Carlo Filippo in here, your muscle chef, ready to talk to you about this guy, the chicken pound. What do we do with the chicken pound? We prepare grilled chicken in different flavors, 6 to be exact. If you're serious about bodybuilding and you meal prep, don't go anywhere else. This is the company for you.
RX Television on RXMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, better known as hashtag Ask Dave, brought to you by Species Nutrition, Titan Medical, and the Chicken Pound, along with the Legion Sports Fest. I'm your host, Sadiq Faruqi. This is your 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. All your questions on diet, training, supplementation, IFBB pros, competitions, whatever's on your mind, it is all on the table. As we now bring in Dave Palumbo. Dave, a lot going on right now. We have a big spot planned with the head judge of the IFBB, Steve Weinberger, tomorrow. We're going to get a lot of questions answered, a lot of burning questions that people have been asking us ever since last week's Olympia.
Yeah, it's always good to get to talk to Steve, and I haven't, since I moved out of New York, I used to be in the gym all the time. Now I'm not there, so I really don't see Steve. I wasn't at the Olympia, so it'll be nice for me to ask him the questions I know that a lot of people are thinking about and trying to debate online, because Steve's a no bullshit guy. He's going to give me the exact answer of why this guy was picked and why that guy was picked and why this guy didn't do well and why this guy did great. And then all the questions will be answered because you're getting it from the guy who is the head judge. I mean, because I'm so sick of everyone arguing with each other about why this and why that and what's classic, what's not. Let's hear what the judges thought. That's what people want to know.
Let's get to the question. So again, tomorrow, keep an eye out for that. We're going to have live with Steve Weinberger tomorrow, time to be announced. Let's go to the questions. The first 2 questions from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. The first question, Dave, on the vegan diet, I see you have pea protein powder. Is it a fairly high quality source of protein? How does it compare with a whey or casein?
First of all, I have a Dave Palumbo Experience app that you guys can subscribe to. It's $29 a month, and it's basically all my articles, all the videos I've ever done in one compiled place. It's like a library of Dave Palumbo stuff, and a lot of people love it. Okay, I also answer everyone's questions on there. So if you're an app member, you can ask me a question, and it gets answered actually in a public forum on there, so that everyone sees all the questions and answers, which is great because you might not even know you have questions. Then you see someone ask a question, and it's a learning experience for you. I also do an exclusive Q&A video on the app every single week. So it's a separate Ask Dave, like just for the app members, and that's exclusive to them as well. We also put up a workout every week for people who like to have different workouts listed up there. That's really helpful as well. One of the resources I put up there was a vegan diet, because there are a lot of vegans out there that want to know how they can get in shape. So I put up a vegan diet that I use with some of my vegan clients. I have a lot of Indian clients actually in the country of India, and a lot of people, as you know, there don't eat any meat products. They only eat vegetables, and they're vegetarian. So I created a diet and I put it up there. And one of the shake options I use is a pea protein shake. Soy used to be the kind of like the vegan go-to. Soy's got so much controversial back and forth. I don't think anything's wrong with soy personally. I think it's fine. But so many people have, it's estrogenic, it's not estrogenic. And so pea protein seems to have the same nutritional value, even a little better than soy. It tastes a little better, it's easier to flavor, and it doesn't seem to bother people's stomach quite as much. Soy kind of can cause some gas a little bit sometimes. So I like to use pea protein in the shake with almond butter or peanut butter. Once again, I do a fat protein type of scenario. Now, what's the quality comparison of pea protein to whey isolate? There's no comparison. Whey isolate blows it away because it's high in branched chain amino acids. We know animal sources of protein is superior to plants in terms of muscle building and mTOR stimulating effects inside the cell. But if you're a vegan and you're not eating, you can't have whey, then it's a non-option. So pea protein is great. Now there's some clients that I work with over in India that actually will use dairy products. They won't use any killed animal products. Like they won't do fish, they won't do meat, they won't do chicken, but they'll do whey. They won't even do eggs, but they'll do whey. And so I have a lot of times for the shakes, I'll do whey isolate. And for the meals, I'll do more, like tofu and some beans and foods like that, soy-based foods as well. But it's obviously harder to be a bodybuilder if you're not consuming animal products. But I think pea protein, once again, is probably the new gold standard in vegan type shakes because of the fact that it kind of tastes pretty good and it doesn't bother your stomach.
Second question again from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. Dave, what tips can you give me to increase my metabolism?
The best way to increase metabolic rate, believe it or not, is to build lean muscle tissue. I always give people the analogy of a car. What car burns more gas, a 400 horsepower car or a 200 horsepower car? Obviously the 400 horsepower car, because the engine requires more fuel to make it work. It's like the same thing with the human body. If you have more muscle, it's like you're a higher horsepower individual. You have a much greater metabolic demand. So yeah, you can sit and do cardio all day long, and while you're doing the cardio, you're burning calories, and there's a little bit of an afterburn. But when you're sleeping at night, you're not burning calories. But if you add 10 pounds of muscle to your body, you're burning calories all the time because that muscle is metabolic. It requires fuel, whether you're sleeping or awake, to make it work. And so, that's why a combination of weight training, cardio, and diet is the most effective way to burn fat.
Let's go to our Instagram questions. Again, if you're not following us on Instagram, our handle is official_RXMuscle. Just a quick note, obviously this is the first time I've been on with Dave since the Olympia weekend. If you watched last week, you knew I was pretty much sick in bed all week from the Olympia experience. I just wanted to give a quick thank you again to all the fans who were providing us feedback throughout the course of the weekend. We had so much fun just interacting with you, obviously through YouTube and then through Instagram, through the stories, through our DMs or whatever. You guys let us know what you liked, what you didn't like throughout the course of the week, which is really cool and allowed us to up our game to give you the best coverage that we possibly could. So again, thank you to the RX Muscle community. Let's go to Chalupa Matej, big fan of the show. Good question here. Why didn't more Olympians go to the Italy show, the Yamamoto Cup? Despite its huge $70,000 prize money, to today's bodybuilders not like competing anymore, what's going on?
Quite frankly, I have no idea. John Romano and I talked about this on the new show we just launched, the new podcast called After Hours. I was like, I don't understand why all the top guys... Yeah, now, ironically, when I did this little... I don't know if it was on that show or if I did a rant about it, but... Dexter Jackson's girlfriend, Gail, who's I've known for years, contacted me and thanked me that I had for what I said about Dexter. And she's like, Dexter and I just launched this new show. He really would have gone to Italy because Dexter would have wanted the money, but Dexter had to make an appearance at the show. He had Brandon Curry, Mr. Olympia coming there to guest post, so that's why Dexter wasn't there. He had a good excuse. I don't know why, what's his name? William Bonac wasn't there. I don't know why Hadi Chupin wasn't there. It miffs me. I mean, these are guys that could have easily gone and picked up a paycheck. I don't understand it. I don't even understand why Patrick Moore wasn't there. I should have asked him that on the show when I interviewed him the other day, because these were opportunities to really make a name for yourself and to really, it's only a week out from the Olympia. I mean, it was not a big deal to jump on an airplane. Now, I don't know if John Enrico Pica, the promoter, our friend, was paying anyone to come over there or paying for expenses, but I know him. He would have definitely helped these guys out and given them hotel rooms, stuff like that. So there's no excuse why these guys didn't do that show. Bad move, I think. And that's why these European Pro Grand Prix are disappearing, because they're not getting the athlete involvement. And I don't know why these guys wouldn't want to do it. It's the Olympia. You're done with the Olympia. Now enjoy yourself. Go on the Euro Tour. It's almost like a little vacation for yourself. You get to go, get places for free, essentially. They treat you like royalty. You got all these fans you're making connections with. You might hook yourself up for guest posings, possible sponsorships. Missed opportunity.
Let's go to, you mentioned Dexter Jackson, so the next question actually involves Dexter. It is from it's a very long name. Having seen Ronnie go through so much pain and surgeries, do you feel his type of heavy training is still recommended for pros? Also, Dexter recently quoted he has stopped free weights and moved to machines, which is why he is still competing, but did neglecting the basics have caused physiques of pros? So I guess he's kind of going into a couple of different directions. One would be about machines, but then about basics, and if that's what's costing the physiques of today's pros.
If you want to get big, okay, anyone who's gotten big and put on a lot of muscle, Dexter included, did free weights at one point, heavy weights, okay? Aside from Vince Taylor, who might be a genetic freak of freaks. But most people don't have maybe insane genetics have to lift heavy weights, basic movements, squats, deadlifts, okay, bent over rows, bench presses, incline bench presses, shoulder press. You got to do those basic movements if you want to put mass on your body. Once you have the mass and you get to an older age and you're still able to function, like Dexter, you can maintain what you got doing heavy weights with machines. And the reason Dexter does that, I don't have to even talk to him to know this, is because machines support the weight for you. You're not putting your joints at risk. It's a lot less pressure on your spine. So he can still stimulate all his muscles and keep them bigger. He's not putting any more new size on. He wants to maintain his physique at this point with very little risk to damage because the machines are taking the brunt of the stabilization aspect of the thing. Now, you're going to lose a little bit from that, but you're not going to lose a lot. And Dexter's so good that you don't notice it, but he's smart. He figures out, all right, I'm 50 years old now. How do I stay in the game for another 5 or 10 years if that's what he wants to do? Well, I got to train smart. But early in your career, you got to lay it on the line. Every single week that I went to the gym when I was in my prime and really gaining muscle, I didn't know if I was walking out of there in one piece. I was pushing weights that were not comfortable for me, that were heavier than I had ever lifted before. It was scary, quite frankly, and I had to make sure I brought a training partner with me that I trusted, because when I went down with 700 pounds in a squat, I had to know that my training partner, if he knew I got stuck, was going to lift me up and get me up. Same thing with your bench. When you're benching 405 and you got 405 over your head and you're pushing 405 up on an incline, you better know your training partner is there not to over help you, but to help you enough to get it up so that you can still get the training benefit out of it, but without killing yourself. The scariest thing is if you're traveling and you go to a foreign gym and you're doing a bench press and you get stuck with the weight and the thing's pinned to your chest and you got to yell for someone to come help you. It's not a good thing to do. So, you have to push heavy weights if you want to build muscle. That's the bottom line. Most people are not willing to go into that pain, discomfort, and scary zone, and that's why there's not a lot of crazy, great physiques out there. But the guys that are willing to put it on the line, okay, will get those benefits out of it, but there are ramifications down the road that could lead to, later in life problems. Ronnie got unlucky. He had a weird, awkward lift in high school, and he screwed up something in his back, and it just, even though he trained through it for all the years, it got worse and worse, and it was because of that initial injury. So you can't predict. There are some guys that never get injured. There's guys that are always injured. It's part of the game. If you're not willing to lay your body on the line and risk it all, then you're not going to be great. You won't be great at anything if you're not willing to risk everything for it. You got to be willing to die for your passion if you want to be the best. And I hate to say that because it's very extreme, but it's the truth. When I was, in the midst of bodybuilding, there was nothing that I wouldn't do. Now, I didn't do stupid stuff, but I'm saying I knew what was necessary to be successful, and I was willing to go into that pain zone that maybe no one else was willing to go. And I was willing to suffer enough to get my body fat so low that I was absolutely miserable all the time, because I knew that there was a payoff at the end of the day. And the payoff for me, not money-wise, the payoff was that I was going to look my absolute best. And that's all I wanted to do. I wanted to bring my absolute best to the stage, leave nothing on the floor, so to speak. I put it all on the line. And there's not many people out there willing to do that. And the people who are make it and are successful and do things that people are impressed with. You think Larry Wheels, wants to lift all that weight? He does it because that's what makes him special. But it's got to be scary for him. I mean, he's lifting more weight than any human being has ever lifted probably in existence. Doing crazy lifts, stuff that no one ever even thought were possible. But that's why he's so good at what he does.
Before we go to the next question, we do have a couple of big pieces on our YouTube channel from yesterday. One, an interview that many of you have requested, and that is with Patrick Moore. Many of you messaged us saying that, obviously you all thought that he was the most overlooked on the Olympia stage. It was a great 25-minute conversation where he highlights some of his intense training regimen to get to where he is now and where he plans to go in the future. Dave, I wanted you to elaborate a little bit more because last night, we re-released an episode of After Hours. It was a popular show from back in the day, from the early period of RX Muscle. You brought it back last night, you and John Romano. Talk to the audience a little bit more about RX Muscle's After Hours.
Yeah, after when you got to remember, back when radio shows, we called them radio shows back then, first started, there was very few people doing it. It was Dan Solomon had the first radio show in bodybuilding with Bob Ciccarillo. It was sponsored by bodybuilding.com. It was called Pro Bodybuilding Weekly. And then then John and I started, which was called No Bull Radio originally when we were with Muscular Development. Then when we left there, and we went and started RX Muscle, we launched the initial Heavy Muscle Radio. So there were two shows basically. That's it. And then there was Carl Lenore did a show, for a while that he's still doing it, Superhuman Radio. And then he did a show with Aaron. It was like Off Topic, it was called. And then Aaron came over and started working with us and started doing Heavy Muscle Radio with us. So those were the shows. And then I always wanted to do a show with all my crazy friends that were also in the bodybuilding industry, but they, weren't really made for Heavy Muscle Radio. And I started holding a show called After Hours at my house. They would come over and we would do the radio show in my house. I had a little studio in my computer room, and we would all share microphones and stuff like that. And it was hysterical because, well, some people thought it was hysterical. We would just talk about anything, basically, craziness, insanity, somewhat linked to bodybuilding. Jimmy Pelleccia, the Smalley brothers. I had a kid, Diego. People would just show up. They would hear about it and they would just show up at my house. I didn't even know who these people were sometimes, and we just got them on and we made them characters in the show. And that led to Heavy Muscle TV. And once I started doing Heavy Muscle TV, which is what I always wanted to do, which is a TV show, I kind of stopped After Hours because the same guys would just come on the TV show. Now that I left New York and I'm not doing the Heavy Muscle TV show anymore, although we've obviously evolved into other programming, I said, you know what? John hasn't really been doing anything. He'll come on and do the radio show once in a while with me, but I kind of need a venue to showcase John and I's banter, so to speak. So I said, him and I were mulling the idea back and forth. We said, why don't we do After Hours Radio again, you and I, and if it catches on, well, we can bring maybe Jimmy Pelleccia on, we can bring Valentino on, and all the whack packers, so to speak, that kind of made the other show so popular years ago. We can kind of bring them back as like in guest situations. So we launched the first episode, and we'll see I think people like it. We got a lot of hits. I think that John has a really strong opinion on things, and I like to to really get them riled up sometimes. So that we're going to start that for a while. We'll try to do like at least a half hour. I'm going to try to keep it limited because I already do too much already, and I don't have any time to do anything. But if I could do a half hour a week, I think that would be a good show to showcase once again John and I's opinion on various things. Not only in bodybuilding, but in the entire world.
Let's go back to the questions. Aaron L. Wood, your opinion on GDA's glucose disposal agents for people that don't have blood sugar issues. If someone did have a blood sugar issue, why take a GDA versus insulin?
Look, if you don't have blood sugar issues and your blood sugar control is good, and the way to check that would be to buy a glucometer. You can go to Walmart and buy one for $9 or $10. I mean, check your fasting blood sugars. If they're under 90 consistently or around that area, then you're good. If your 2-hour post-meal blood sugars are under 130, you're good. Don't even worry about it, okay? If you're running high blood sugars, okay, and you're on Jee-H, it's the Jee-H that's making your blood sugars high. Now, you have an option. If they're high in the dangerous zone, over 100 fasting, over 135, 2-hour post-meal, it's usually the fasting ones that get screwed up. Then, personally, I would use insulin because fasting blood sugars are not going to be affected by glucose disposal agents. Glucose disposal agents are anything that help force calories or specifically carbs into the muscle cells and lower blood sugar, okay? You can only take them with meals, okay? If your 2-hour post-meal blood sugars are normal, under 130, then you don't need glucose disposal agents. It's not going to help the morning blood sugars that are high, the fasting sugars. Those are high because overnight there's something known as the dawn phenomenon. Your body, specifically the liver, starts cranking out glucose. It turns amino acids into glucose to raise blood sugar so that when you wake up in the morning, you don't feel like you're going to pass out. And, theoretically, your pancreas should be releasing, insulin to lower that blood sugar, and help you absorb it, right? But if you're waking up in the morning and you're having high blood sugars, it's because the pancreas is not able to keep up with the insulin requirements to lower the blood sugar. Because sometimes your liver can really throw out a lot of glucose. And that's usually because the Jee-H that's in your body is acting as an antagonist to the insulin. Okay, it's not allowing insulin to get to its receptors, so your body needs additional insulin to kind of override the Jee-H effect. So if you're persistent enough and you want to continue taking Jee-H and you're running high blood sugars, a better option, or the only option really, would be to take insulin. You could take a long-acting insulin before bed and in the morning, and it kind of runs in the background. You don't have to eat a certain amount of carbs for the insulin. You just take it. You take it like a product like Lantus insulin. You could do 15 IUs before bed, 10 IUs in the morning, and that usually will get your blood sugars back in line. Okay, and I do that with a couple of my clients. It's a safe way because you're not going to get a crashing blood sugar where you're going to wind up in the hospital or dead. Okay, you don't have to worry about what you're eating. It runs in the backdrop. Okay, and once again, glucose disposal agents won't do anything because you're not going to be getting up in the middle of the night and taking a glucose disposal agent to help you with your spiking night blood sugars. And so that's the best way to handle that situation.
Let's go to Aesthetic with Enzo, another RXMuscle fan who helped us out during Olympia weekend. So thank you again, Enzo. His question: if I only do incline presses and no flat presses for chest, do you think I'm missing out on some development? I follow your low volume approach and currently hit 2 incline pressing movements and 1 cable fly. I feel like incline isolates my pecs better and doesn't let my shoulders take over.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I did very low incline, so it's not even like it almost looks flat. It's like just a little incline. I get the lowest setting on the bench, and I used to do that all the time. Incline barbell presses, incline dumbbell presses, incline flies. I just stopped doing flats, and every once in a blue moon I would throw in some flat benching. And I found that my chest looked better because I've never seen anyone with a super strong upper chest and a weak lower chest. Usually the guys that tell me they have a weak lower chest, they just have gyno, and they need to get the gynecomastia taken out. That's why their chest doesn't look good down there. So when you train your upper chest on an incline, you're still training your pec major muscle. You're still training the lower pecs as well. You're just putting more of an emphasis on the upper, which is really what you want to see anyway. You want to see that clavicle all filled in right there. So yeah, I mean, you could just do incline stuff as long as the incline is not too steep, because once you get too steep, you're using more front delt.
Good one here by Muscle by Mones. If Phil, Shawn, Dexter, and Brandon compete in the Olympia next year, would that be the first time that 4 Mr. Olympias competed against one another?
Good question. We'd have to ask John Hansen, our Olympia historian. Well, the year Haney won, right? When Haney won the Olympia, I think Samir was in it. He was in Mr. Olympia. I think that Chris Dickerson was in it. He was in Mr. Olympia. And was Sergio Oliva in it also? Was Mr. Olympia? That might have been 4 Mr. Olympia. I don't know if all those guys were in it in '84. I don't know if Zane was still competing at that point. So wait, let's see. If it was Samir, Dickerson, and Haney, and then, but Haney wasn't Mr. Olympia technically then yet.
Wait, what year? What year was this?
Was that '84? I'm thinking. Am I making that up? When Sergio made a comeback. We might have had 4 Mr. Olympias. No, it might have had 3 with Haney being crowned the 4th, right there that year. You could look it up on Muscle Memory.
Yeah, that.
I think I may be right. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Sergio Oliva made the comeback that year, '84.
He was there. He was there. Yeah.
So it was Dickerson there and Samir.
Dickerson to Haney. Well, yeah.
And Samir was probably definitely there, defending. So you had Dickerson. 3, and then Haney just became Mr. Olympia that year.
Right. So I mean, this theoretically would be the first time that it would ever happen then, correct?
I guess, yeah.
2020, yeah. So, all right. Well, let's go back to the questions. Shadwater Fit. Appreciate if you could address, if I were to utilize Jee-H at 4 to 6 IU and Humulin R insulin in my off-season protocol, when would you suggest taking each substance? Would it be better to split into multiple shots during the day at different times?
if you're taking 4 IUs or less of Jee-H, you could take it all in the morning. If you're going to start, if you want to go higher than that, 5, 6 IUs a day or more, that's up to you, obviously. I would probably split it into 2 shots, like one in the morning, one like 5, 6 hours later. Likewise, I would do my insulin shot in the morning, and I would do the second one 5 to 6 hours later, if you're doing like a Humulin R shot. And then, obviously, IGF-1, if you're going to use that, that's post-workout.
Let's go to Excellent 187, a theoretical one here. I get that structure is important in bodybuilding, but surely it should still boil down to the eye test and who looks the best. In his opinion, Hadi and even Kamal look better than Brandon. Don't you think the, quote, structure argument is BS because essentially pushes potential giant killers to 212?
Bodybuilding's tough to judge, and I'm glad I'm not a judge because I wouldn't want to be in that situation because, and I've talked to Steve Weinberger about this innumerable times, and I can even ask him about this when we interview him. They judge what's up there, okay? Some years they base their decision, they'll say, well, we picked this guy because he's got a better structure than this guy. Other years, they'll say, this guy was in better condition and he beats this guy. So it really depends on, they look at everyone as a whole and they say, who looks the best up there? Who's Mr. Olympia in our eyes? And according to what they saw, and I saw the same thing, although I watched it from TV, I thought Brandon won. I thought Brandon was good enough, had more wow than Hadi, even though Hadi, technically, when you look at the pictures, he's harder, he's got a lot of dense muscle, he's got better legs, but the way Brandon's physique flows on stage and the way he moves, he looks like the winner up there. That's how Arnold won in 80, and beat some guys that might have been a little better than him. He just looked better in action. You can't take snapshots of bodybuilders and then analyze it afterwards and say, does this guy deserve to win? You have to see it live in action. And obviously, everyone has their own favorites. I'm a conditioning guy. So if anyone was going to pick Hadi Chupin, it would have been me. But he's very short, and he doesn't have a real small waist. And I think that detracts when I see him in the lineup. When I see him alone, I think he looks like Mr. Olympia. When I see him next to Brandon, I think Brandon makes him look, not as good. And Brandon wasn't his best, but Brandon was, in my mind, good enough to win. He's going to really have to cement this win with another win next year if people are going to validate him as a Mr. Olympia who really made an impact on the scene. If he wins again, and I was waiting for Shawn Rhoden to do that this year, which he certainly would have. He probably easily would have won again. A lot of people wanted to see Rhoden win 2. And that, when you win 2, you're Mr. Olympia. When you win 1, it could be a fluke. You know what I mean? You're still Mr. Olympia, don't get me wrong. Hey, Dexter won 1. He certainly deserved that victory. But he hasn't won another one since then. It was a lot harder for him because he was never the biggest guy on stage. To me, Brandon deserved the victory. Next year will cement his legacy, though.
Let's go to Caustic Demir. Can you explain estrogen rebound effect and how to prevent it?
I don't think it's really an estrogen rebound people are experiencing as much as a water rebound. So after a show, you take diuretics for a day or 2, right? Some people more. You restrict sodium for a day or 2, some people more. You restrict water for a day or 2, some people stupidly more. And what does your body do? It raises the hormone aldosterone through the roof because aldosterone's job is to reabsorb sodium and water. You're not giving your body water, you're not giving it sodium, and you're giving it diuretics to get rid of the water and sodium. So your body is saying, holy shit, we don't have enough sodium and water. Start cranking out more aldosterone. Maybe we don't have enough aldosterone. So by the time the show is over and you're ready to start drinking Saturday night after the show's over, your aldosterone is through the freaking roof. And as soon as you put any kind of water and sodium back into your body, which you have to do, obviously, right? Your body just holds on to it. It doesn't allow it to get, peed out via the kidneys because there's so much aldosterone, you overabsorb. You absorb too much sodium and water. And so you start holding water. That's a lot of times why I tell people to take a little bit of diuretic for a couple days after the show if you need it. Okay, so that rebound you get is not an estrogenic rebound. People think water retention, estrogen. No, it's an aldosterone rebound, and it can last 2 weeks. So you have to kind of really monitor what you're doing. And restricting sodium and water is not the solution because the more you do that, the more you raise aldosterone. We want aldosterone to go down. The only way it's going to go down is to eat sodium and water and drink water. Okay? If you're holding excessive amounts of water, you take a little diuretic like a diazide, which pushes out, okay, the extra sodium and water. It's not going to affect aldosterone. You certainly don't do aldactone, which would inhibit aldosterone, which would make your body produce more aldosterone. We don't want to do that. So I don't believe in an estrogenic rebound as much as I do an aldosterone rebound or fluid rebound. Some, women think, well, if I stop Nolvadex right away, I'm going to rebound. Nah, I mean, your estrogen's a little higher, but that fluid retention, that weight gain is from an aldosterone effect. It's not from estrogen.
Final question. Tread lightly. Aaron 19. Who, in your opinion, are the biggest, quote, wasted talents in bodybuilding? Meaning they had the body and genetics to win the Olympia, but their mind and work ethic were not up to par.
Look, we've said it before, and I like him, and this is not an insult towards him, and maybe he just doesn't want to, but Cedric McMillan is probably, this was his show. He lost this show because he didn't want to win it. He could have won this show. It was ripe for the picking. They were looking for someone. Brandon and him have very similar physiques. Brandon's legs are not super dominant, neither was Cedric's. Cedric's got a bigger structure than Brandon. He's beaten Brandon many times before. Cedric certainly could have won this Olympia, okay? He was, of this show, he was the wasted talent there. I don't know what happened to him. I know that Chris Aceto had reached out to him to work with him. He politely, just declined to work with Chris. He probably did it himself. I don't know if he was just too busy. I hear him making excuses that he was busy doing, his military maneuvers, and maybe he was. I don't know. But the bottom line is we've seen Cedric great before. So I don't know what his problem is with the Olympia, why he can't peak and nail it. Maybe it's his own self-destruct mechanism inside of me. He doesn't feel he's worthy of Mr. Olympia. I don't know. All I know is that we would have gotten the greatest acceptance winner's speech of all time had he won the Olympia. I was rooting for him to win the Olympia, but he just didn't bring it. So in my mind, at the Olympia, I'm not going to say in general in bodybuilding, but at the Olympia, I think Cedric was certainly the wasted talent there.
That's going to do for this episode of Ask Dave. A reminder right now on RXMuscle.com and the YouTube channel, our interview with Patrick Moore, and then the return last night of After Hours with Dave and John Romano. From this past weekend, Dave has his breakdown of the Yamamoto Cup, and then, of course, the guest posing from Dexter Jackson's show, where Dexter Jackson and Brandon Curry have some fun with the audience. Check that video out, all the videos right now at RXMuscle.com and the YouTube channel. For Tyler Shore and Dave Palumbo, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.